I always believed that love was built on trust and sacrifice. My name is Garrett Rivers, and several years ago, I chose to leave behind a promising corporate career in order to build a home and raise a family with my wife, Olivia, and our 2 children. We settled into a comfortable suburban home in a thriving American city, a place where sunlit mornings began with the aroma of fresh coffee and the sound of birds, and where evenings were filled with the laughter of children and the soft murmur of shared dreams. Olivia, with her radiant smile and gentle intelligence, was my partner and my anchor. Together, we had planned a future of security, warmth, and endless promise. I had renounced my ambitions in the corporate world because I believed our life together was the most important venture of all. Every sacrifice I made was an investment in the future we envisioned: quiet dinners around a table set with care, bedtime stories that nurtured our children's dreams, and a deep, abiding trust that held our family together. For a long time, I took pride in the life we built. Yet, in the background of our seemingly perfect routine, I began to notice subtle discrepancies. It started with small details: an extra minute taken to leave for work, a fleeting hesitation in her smile when she answered her phone, or a soft sigh that seemed to speak of unspoken thoughts. I chalked these moments up to the challenges of balancing a busy life. But, as the days passed, an uneasy feeling took root in my heart, a premonition that the promises we made were not as steadfast as I believed. One autumn day, as golden leaves danced outside our window, Olivia announced that she had to leave for a business trip to meet with city officials regarding a new project. Her eyes sparkled with a practiced enthusiasm that I had always admired, and I embraced her, trusting in the life we had built together. Yet, as I watched her drive away along the bustling highway, an inexplicable chill ran through me, a silent whisper that not everything was as it seemed. That night, as our home fell into a quiet hush, I opened my old leather journal and began to record the small details of the day: the lingering kiss at the door, the way her gaze lingered on her phone before she left, and the extra minutes that ticked by before her departure. I told myself these were just the inevitable imperfections of a busy life, yet a seed of doubt had been planted that night, a seed that would soon grow into something I could no longer ignore. In the days following Olivia's departure, our home grew unusually quiet. The lively chatter and easy laughter that once filled our family dinners had given way to a tentative silence. When Olivia returned, her recounting of the business trip was clipped and oddly rehearsed, as though she were carefully weighing each word before speaking. I began to notice subtle signals: the way her eyes darted to her phone when she mentioned meeting someone from her work circle, the slight hesitation in her tone when discussing her travel schedule, and even the almost imperceptible tightening around her smile. Every evening, once the children were asleep and the house was cloaked in stillness, I retreated to my study. There, under the steady glow of my desk lamp, I poured every observation into my journal. I meticulously recorded the exact times Olivia left and returned, the brief pauses in our conversations, and the changes in her laughter that now carried a trace of guardedness. Initially, I tried to rationalize these anomalies as nothing more than the side effects of a hectic schedule or the natural ebb and flow of modern life. Yet, as page after page accumulated, a disquieting pattern began to emerge, a tapestry of subtle details that hinted at secrets and concealed truths. One gray, rainy afternoon, as droplets tapped softly against the windowpane and the world outside appeared to weep in unison with my own sorrow, I finally gathered the courage to ask, "How was your trip?" I attempted to sound casual as I sipped my lukewarm coffee, yet my voice betrayed the tremor of anxiety. Her reply was curt: "It was fine, just the usual meetings," but as she spoke, I noticed her eyes flickering toward her phone, and a fleeting look of discomfort passed across her face. My heart sank, and from that moment on, I began to time her absences, to record the length of her phone calls, and even to jot down the names that flashed across her screen, names that were unfamiliar and sparked a cold curiosity within me. Night after night, the questions multiplied in the silence of our home. I wondered if I had sacrificed too much of my own identity in the name of family, if the promise of unwavering love was merely a delicate illusion ready to shatter under the weight of hidden truths. Though I clung desperately to the hope that our bond was strong enough to weather any storm, the mounting evidence, the prolonged silences, the furtive glances, the inconsistencies in her story, spoke of something far more insidious eroding the foundation of our life together. By the end of that tense week, those quiet doubts had transformed into an overwhelming need for certainty. I realized that ignoring these omens might come at a far greater cost than confronting them. With a heavy heart and trembling resolve, I steeled myself for what was to come, knowing that each passing moment increased the risk of losing not only our trust but the future we had so carefully envisioned. Late one humid evening, when Olivia once again announced she was leaving for what she claimed was another business trip, my heart thundered with a mix of dread and desperate determination. By that time, the seeds of suspicion had blossomed into a palpable urgency, a need to confront the unknown that gnawed at me day and night. I resolved that I could no longer remain a silent observer, burdened by doubts and the terror of the unseen. Under the shroud of Miami's balmy twilight, I slipped quietly out of our home, each step heavy with both apprehension and the desperate hope of uncovering the truth. The familiar streets of our Miami suburb, usually aglow with the warm radiance of streetlights and filled with the comforting hum of nightly life, now appeared transformed. Neon reflections shimmered on rain-drenched pavement, and the city, with all its vibrant energy, seemed to hide secrets in every shadowed corner. My mind raced as I followed her along these altered paths, a route I had known so well, now winding into unknown territory. Every footfall echoed with a mixture of fear and longing for clarity, each step felt like a plunge deeper into an unsettling mystery. At first, Olivia moved confidently with a small group of colleagues, laughing, talking, exuding the polished professionalism I once admired. For a fleeting moment, I clung to the hope that this was just another routine business trip. But as the minutes slipped away, I observed her slowly separating from the group, her pace softening as she veered down a quieter, unfamiliar street. My pulse quickened with every step, the ambient noise of the city faded into a haunting silence, replaced by the rhythmic patter of rain and the steady beat of my anxious heart. I maintained a discreet distance, each shadow, each neon glimmer guiding me toward a destination I dreaded yet desperately needed to reach. Eventually, my pursuit led me to a sleek, upscale resort, a venue that exuded an air of luxury and intimacy entirely at odds with the sterile corridors of corporate meetings. I parked my car a short distance away and found a hidden vantage point near a large window, straining my eyes to capture every nuance of the unfolding scene. What I saw shattered my world. Instead of the sterile, purpose-driven meetings I had expected, I witnessed Olivia immersed in a hidden vacation. There, amid the opulence of the resort's grand lobby and softly lit corridors, she was laughing freely with a handsome stranger whose presence radiated both warmth and a disarming charm. Their interaction was intimate, the way her eyes sparkled with secret delight, the subtle touch of his hand that lingered on hers, and the shared, conspiratorial smiles that told of a romance blooming in the shadows. I fumbled with my phone, my hands trembling as I captured every fleeting detail, the snippet of her laughter, the hushed words that passed between them, the gentle, lingering way she rested her hand in his. Every captured moment imprinted itself onto my memory, painting a picture that was brutally at odds with the story she had woven. This was not a business trip at all, it was a hidden vacation, a seductive escapade born of desire and betrayal that repaid my sacrifices with a searing wound in my heart. Returning home in a daze, my mind awash with bitter realization, I locked myself in my study. There, under the unforgiving glow of my desk lamp, I poured every agonizing detail into my journal. I described with excruciating clarity the way her eyes lit up with secret delight in the stranger's presence, the subtle tilt of her head as she listened to his every word, and the soft cadence of her laughter that now rang with a note of defiance. Each entry was a searing reminder of the life I had believed in, a future built on shared dreams, now crumbling under the weight of deception. In that lonely, painful hour, I vowed that I would not allow this betrayal to remain hidden. The truth, however excruciating, had to be confronted, and the price of my sacrifice demanded justice. In the days following my heart-wrenching discovery, I transformed my personal anguish into a relentless, single-minded quest for irrefutable proof, a mission that consumed every waking moment of my life. Every minor detail, every anomalous behavior that I had once dismissed as an insignificant quirk, became a vital piece of the puzzle that would expose the full extent of Olivia's betrayal. I plunged headlong into her digital world with an intensity that left me both physically exhausted and emotionally hardened. I meticulously sifted through her phone records, scrutinized her social media profiles, and combed through every digital conversation with an obsessive precision that blurred the line between vigilance and despair. Every late-night text, every unexpected phone call, and every fleeting name that scrolled across her screen was recorded in my journal as if each were a droplet filling an ever-growing reservoir of evidence, a reservoir that threatened to overflow with undeniable truth. I devoted countless sleepless nights to scouring every digital conversation. I saved screenshots of messages that, on the surface, appeared strictly professional but, upon closer inspection, were laced with flirtatious banter, explicit declarations of desire, and intimate confessions that defied the pretense of work-related communication. These messages, disguised as business letters, were in fact a chronicle of a hidden romance, a narrative of longing and passion that was meant for no eyes but those of her secret paramour. Each revelation struck me like a shard of glass, slicing deeper into the foundation of trust one had so carefully built. Not content with textual evidence alone, I gathered every photo and short video clip I had managed to capture outside the resort. I spent long nights digitizing these visual fragments and seamlessly integrating them with the screenshots of the intimate exchanges. With painstaking precision, I constructed a detailed timeline that spanned several weeks, a timeline that revealed how each of Olivia's so-called business trips had gradually morphed into a series of clandestine getaways, marked by covert meetings and hushed confessions. Every entry was annotated with the exact date, time, and even the specific location where these hidden rendezvous occurred. Slowly but inexorably, the dossier emerged as a damning mosaic, a visual and written testament to a systematic betrayal that left no room for denial. Yet, even as the physical evidence mounted, a profound internal conflict stirred within me. In the quiet, lonely hours of the night, I would sit alone before the compiled files, those digital relics of my shattered trust, and wonder if my relentless pursuit of proof was gradually erasing the compassionate man I once was. Was I in danger of losing the gentle, forgiving soul that had believed so deeply in the sanctity of our family? Each time such doubts crept in, I forced myself to recall the tender, secret moments I had witnessed between Olivia and her paramour, the subtle smiles, the fleeting touches, the whispered promises shared in dark corners, and with every recollection, my resolve grew colder. The bitter truth became all too clear: the cost of betrayal was far too high to allow even a trace of compassion to remain unchallenged. By the end of an agonizing week, my dossier was complete, a comprehensive, unassailable chronicle of every lie, every furtive meeting, every stolen moment of intimacy that had defiled the very foundation of our shared future. As I pored over the final pages of my journal, my hands trembling and my heart heavy with the accumulated evidence, I knew that soon the time would come to confront Olivia with this damning truth. When that moment arrived, nothing would be able to hide the systematic betrayal I had so painstakingly documented. The dossier was not merely a collection of evidence, it was the embodiment of every broken promise, every sacrifice repaid in deceit, a mirror reflecting a painful reality that I could no longer ignore. With a heavy heart and a resolve forged in sorrow and tempered by relentless determination, I closed my journal and stared at the amassed files on my desk. In that quiet, dark moment, I felt a transformation taking hold, a metamorphosis from the compassionate, hopeful man I once was into someone driven by an unyielding need to force the truth into the unforgiving light. Every page, every meticulously recorded detail, became a battle cry against the deception that had so irreparably wounded me. I steeled myself for the inevitable confrontation that would soon shatter the fragile illusion of security that had once defined our lives. The day of reckoning arrived beneath a leaden sky that mirrored the crushing weight of my grief and the turbulent storm of emotions raging within me. I had prepared for this day for what felt like an eternity, a day when every hidden truth would be forced into the harsh, unyielding light. I invited Olivia to our home under the pretext of discussing our future, a final, desperate attempt to salvage what remained of the dreams we had once nurtured. In our living room, which had once been a sanctuary of laughter and tender memories, I meticulously arranged the dossier on the coffee table. Printed photographs, detailed journal entries, and digital recordings were arrayed like silent witnesses, each one an irrefutable testament to the systematic betrayal that had invaded my life. When Olivia entered, the confident smile I had once adored faltered as her eyes fell upon the damning evidence. For a long, suffocating moment, neither of us spoke. The air was thick with unspoken accusations and the heavy burden of despair. Then, my voice, laden with sorrow yet burning with seething anger, broke the silence. "Olivia," I began, each word trembling with heartbreak and fury, "I sacrificed everything for our family. I gave up a promising career, my ambitions, everything, to build a future with you. And now I see that all those promises were nothing but illusions." Her eyes widened in shock, and she stammered feebly, insisting it was just a mistake, a lapse born of loneliness, she claimed. But every piece of evidence, every recorded detail, rendered her explanations hollow and meaningless. I recounted, with painstaking clarity, every late night, every secret call, every intimate message that confirmed the betrayal. Each word struck like a hammer blow upon the fragile foundation of trust we had once so dearly built. As her defenses crumbled into quiet sobs, I warned her that the truth was now irrevocably exposed and that the price of my sacrifice demanded consequences far beyond mere apologies. With my heart aching and my spirit hardened by months of silent suffering, I turned away and left her alone in our home, a home that now echoed with the silence of shattered dreams and broken promises. Stepping out into the chill afternoon, I vowed that Olivia, and, by extension, the man who had exploited our trust, would soon have to face the full consequences of their actions. My sacrifice was too profound to be repaid with deception, and I knew that the next chapter of this painful journey would demand retribution, a reckoning that would force every broken promise into the unforgiving light of truth. Each step I took away from that house was heavy with the memories of lost dreams and unspoken words, and I knew in my heart that there would be no turning back. In the bitter days that followed our confrontation, the raw anguish that had once threatened to consume me began to crystallize into a steely resolve for vengeance. I threw myself into advanced self-defense classes, pushing my body through grueling workouts at the gym until every drop of sweat and every bruise became a tangible symbol of the determination burning within me, a determination to reclaim the dignity that had been so ruthlessly stripped away. With each disciplined movement, I felt as if I were gradually piecing together the man I once was, rising resolutely from the ashes of betrayal with renewed strength and purpose. Simultaneously, I delved deep into the world of the man who had betrayed us, a suave figure whose polished charm had long masked vulnerabilities I was now determined to exploit. I sought out acquaintances, gathered whispered pieces of information, and combed through his social media profiles with a meticulous precision that bordered on obsession. Slowly, I constructed a detailed profile that laid bare the human flaws hidden behind his immaculate facade. Every reckless decision he had made, every careless moment he dismissed with arrogance, became ammunition in my growing arsenal of vengeance. I recorded every minute detail in my journal, the exact phrases he used in casual conversation, the subtle shifts in his tone when discussing his work, and the rare moments when his mask of confidence slipped, even if only for a moment. Each small fragment reinforced my resolve. I would hold him accountable for every broken promise and every stolen moment of intimacy that had defiled the future we once dreamed of. Late at night, in the oppressive solitude of our now quiet home, I poured my conflicted emotions onto the pages of my journal. I wrestled with a gnawing fear that my relentless pursuit of retribution might ultimately consume the compassionate man I once was, a man who had believed in forgiveness and the sanctity of our family. Yet, every time that doubt threatened to overwhelm me, I recalled the tender, forbidden moments I had witnessed between Olivia and that man, the soft, intimate laughs, the secretive glances, the lingering touch that had burned like a brand into my memory, and my resolve blazed ever brighter. I began to devise a plan with the cold precision of someone who felt he had nothing left to lose. I selected a chic, upscale restaurant, a venue where my betrayer frequently hosted business dinners and where Olivia had once shone with confidence, as the stage for the next act in this unfolding tragedy. Every detail was mapped out meticulously: the exact time of the confrontation, the layout of the dining room with its intimate alcoves and gentle ambient lighting, and the precise sequence of actions that would force a public reckoning. I vowed that the retribution I sought would not only restore my honor but also serve as a stark, unyielding warning: the price of betrayal is steep, and it must be repaid in full. The seeds of vengeance, planted deep within the shattered remnants of my heart, grew stronger with every painful memory. I spent countless sleepless nights haunted by the image of Olivia laughing intimately with that man, the lingering caress of his hand on hers, the furtive glances they exchanged in the darkness, and with each recollection, my determination hardened further. Though I sometimes questioned whether this dark path might ultimately erode the remnants of the compassionate man I once was, those vivid, searing images eclipsed any lingering doubt. I pledged, with a fierce, unwavering conviction, that no matter the cost, I would force a reckoning that left both of them irrevocably scarred by the truth, a reckoning that would unmask every deception and cast our once sacred vows into the unforgiving light of reality. Every new piece of evidence I uncovered, every minute detail I recorded, felt like a small, hard-won victory, a step closer to reclaiming the dignity that had been so brutally ripped from me. I chronicled every clandestine call, every furtive text, every shadowed meeting until my dossier grew into a towering monument to betrayal. With each new page, my resolve hardened further, transforming the pain of every memory into fuel for an unquenchable desire for retribution. Under a sky heavy with dark clouds and a relentless drizzle that transformed Miami's neon glow into a shifting, sorrowful mosaic, the night of reckoning finally arrived. It was as if the heavens themselves mourned the collapse of everything I had once held dear. Madeline had announced yet another evening out, a routine she always cloaked in the guise of professional duty, and I knew, with an intensity that pounded in my chest, that she would be drawn to the upscale restaurant where Blake Monroe, her suave and self-assured betrayer, conducted his business with unwavering confidence. I parked my car in a narrow, shadowed alley, the slick pavement reflecting fractured neon signs like shards of a shattered promise. I sat there in agonizing silence, each heartbeat echoing the relentless, mournful cadence of the rain. Every droplet that fell carried with it the weight of lost dreams and broken promises. With a final, resolute breath, I stepped out of my car and crossed the slick pavement. The cold night air bit at my skin as I approached the looming entrance of the restaurant, a modern coliseum where fates would be irrevocably sealed. From the tinted windows of my vehicle, I watched as Madeline emerged into the rain-soaked night. The woman I had once known, radiant, warm, and full of promise, now moved with a subdued, almost ghostly elegance that betrayed the intimate secrets she shared. The rain softened her features, yet her eyes burned with a hidden sorrow and regret. Beside her, Blake strode confidently, his polished charm and self-assured demeanor a stark contrast to the turbulent emotions that churned within me. Every casual touch, every lingering caress between them, was a public declaration of the betrayal that had tormented me in silence for so long. With deliberate, measured resolve, I left the shelter of my car and advanced into the stormy night. The rain mingled with the sweat on my skin as I neared the entrance, each step echoing the bitter rhythm of my broken heart. Inside, the atmosphere was deceptively serene, a gentle murmur of conversations, the soft clink of glassware, and ambient lighting that bathed the space in a calm glow, belying the storm within me. I navigated through the crowd with a single-minded focus until I reached a secluded booth in the far corner, where Madeline and Blake sat, ensconced in their private world of whispered secrets and tender gestures. For what felt like an eternity, I absorbed every detail, the soft cadence of their shared laughter, the lingering touches that spoke of forbidden intimacy, and the exchanged glances that confirmed every painful suspicion. In that suspended moment, the very air seemed charged with raw, pulsating energy, a prelude to the inevitable collision of our fractured fates. Every second stretched on painfully, each heartbeat a countdown to the moment when I would no longer remain silent. Then, unable to contain the storm raging within me any longer, I emerged from the shadows. In an instant, everything changed. Madeline's face contorted into a raw mask of horror, disbelief, and deep, soul-crushing regret, a look that shattered the remnants of the love I had once believed in. Blake's confident facade crumbled under the force of my sudden, unyielding assault as I lunged forward, every movement driven by the months of pent-up anguish and silent suffering that had festered within me. I struck him with a series of precise, calculated blows, each impact resonating like the toll of a final bell, heralding the end of an era built on deceit. The restaurant erupted into chaos, gasps, murmurs, and the clatter of overturned chairs, as I unleashed my fury upon them both. I shouted declarations of betrayal and recited the litany of sacrifices I had made, ensuring that every witness in that room felt the crushing weight of my retribution. In that brutal, chaotic moment, the private sanctuary of our intimacy was violently torn asunder, exposed for all to see in the unforgiving glare of public scrutiny. When, at last, the tumult subsided and a heavy, sorrowful silence descended upon the room, I slipped away into the rain-drenched night. Every step I took away from that scene was laden with the bittersweet knowledge that nothing could ever restore what had been lost. And yet, for one fleeting, excruciating moment, I had reclaimed a shred of my honor from the depths of betrayal, a solitary, hard-won victory in a war that had cost me everything. In the days that followed that fateful night, the world seemed to slow to a mournful cadence, a heavy, lingering silence that seeped into every corner of my existence. I returned to our once vibrant home, now transformed into a mausoleum of shattered dreams and irrevocable choices. The walls that had once resonated with the laughter of shared moments now whispered dark secrets and bitter regrets. Although the physical wounds inflicted during that violent confrontation would eventually fade, like bruises that slowly lose their color, the deep emotional scars, the searing pain of betrayal, and the crushing cost of my sacrifice were etched indelibly into my soul. They became a constant, unyielding reminder of that night, a spectral ledger of every broken promise and every unhealed wound. News of the confrontation spread quietly through our community, whispered behind closed doors and shared in hushed tones among neighbors who now regarded me with a mixture of pity and wariness. I had become a symbol, a man both pitied and feared, whose desperate quest for retribution had forced hidden sins into the stark, unforgiving light of public scrutiny. Official inquiries passed in a blur of bureaucratic formality, their impersonal questions a distant murmur compared to the relentless storm of guilt and sorrow that raged within me. Yet the true burden of my actions lay solely with me, the ceaseless, unanswerable question of whether any act of vengeance could ever restore what had been so irrevocably shattered. In the wake of that terrible night, Madeline vanished from our home as if swallowed by the darkness she had long concealed. Her absence left behind a cavernous void, a space filled with unanswered questions, bitter regret, and the echo of a love betrayed beyond repair. Blake, too, receded into obscurity, a mere shadow, diminished by the heavy consequences of his choices. I found myself standing alone amidst the ruins of a future that had once promised so much, forever altered by the irreversible path of retribution I had chosen. In the solitude of my study, a room that had once been a sanctuary for hope and creative dreams, I began a new journal, one that bore the raw, unfiltered account of my journey from sacrifice to betrayal, and from that betrayal to the steep, unyielding pursuit of vengeance. Every page became a chronicle of bitter irony. In giving up my career and ambitions to build a family, I had envisioned a future founded on unwavering trust. Instead, I discovered that the very foundation of that future had been shattered by secrets, lies, and the forbidden intimacy that stole away my dreams. Every word I penned was a struggle, a battle between a fragile hope for redemption and the stark, unyielding reality that some wounds never fully heal. I recorded the echoes of whispered confessions that haunted the long, lonely nights, the ghostly remnants of laughter turned to silence, and the heavy toll of every broken promise. As dawn broke on a misty morning, the weak light of a new day barely pierced the thick veil of sorrow that clung to my heart. I stood at a crossroads, scarred in both body and soul, uncertain if I could ever truly move forward. And yet, amid the overwhelming grief and the lingering sting of betrayal, I resolved that my story would serve as a cautionary chronicle, a testament to the fragile nature of trust and the steep, irreversible price of deception. Perhaps, in time, these scars might guide me toward a path of reluctant healing, a slow, arduous journey toward a peace that now seemed almost unattainable. Now, as I step forward into an uncertain future, I carry with me both the legacy of my sacrifice and the heavy burden of my retribution. I have become both the avenger and the wounded, a man forever marked by broken promises and the forbidden intimacy that stole away my dreams. In the quiet moments before each new day, as the darkness of night yields to the tentative glow of dawn, I allow myself a fragile hope that redemption might someday emerge from these ruins. Until that uncertain dawn arrives, I remain a living testament to one bitter truth: the price of betrayal is steep, and the pursuit of vengeance, even if it offers fleeting, brutal relief, leaves behind a legacy of sorrow, irrevocable change, and a heart that may never fully mend. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed this journey, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories like this one. Got thoughts or experiences you'd like to share? Drop them in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.